This is our OB escape room for nursing juniors. When they come into the room, they will see 3 patient case files. They'll have some information that's just displayed. And then they'll see 9 questions that will also be up on a dry erase board for them. And they'll look at question 1 and they'll read that out, and then they'll come to envelope number 1, which will be clearly displayed. On each envelope will have 3 different answers. They pick the appropriate answer and then hang on to it, and then go to question 2 in envelope number 2. And they keep doing that until they get all of these answers. They flip them over, and then they can assemble it and be clued in as to which patient they need to go to. So it'll tell them to use a particular form in a particular envelope. Once they open up the appropriate envelope, they will then get an intake form, and they need to start taking a good history on our patient, who will be our simulator. So they'll ask the patient questions, do a good health history, and then they'll get her GTPAL. And that will open up a lock on this box. And when they open it up, they'll get a flow chart that they will need a little bit later. And then they'll be given some additional supplies to do a physical assessment. So like your ultrasound, your TOCO, a urine sample, and strips for that. And then they'll get puzzle pieces. So they'll have to ask the patient, does she have any right upper quadrant pain? Or they'll have to look to see, are there any accelerations present? Once they figure out, after doing a good assessment, what's occurring for the patient, they'll assemble yet another puzzle, and they'll be greeted with this limerick. My shape is neither a sphere nor a cube. My path is the fallopian tube. A 28-day term for a chance with a sperm. I'm from a hen, not a hare, you rube. So then they'll know, hopefully, to be looking for an Easter egg. There are 3 eggs. Only one will open up the appropriate box. The others are filled with keys that open up dummy boxes, and there's a clue in those dummy boxes that tells them to keep searching. They open up the appropriate box. They get yet another piece of a flow chart. They get some magnesium sulfate with the physician's orders that clues them in on how to hang it and what the next code is. The next code is actually printed on this label. They apply it to the last box, and that opens it up, and then they'll be greeted with the final piece of the flow chart that once they put it all together, they find out what's going on with their patient and what they need to do. They're also given a phone cord that connects to our phone system so that they can call the physician and give an SBAR report. This whole process takes about 45 minutes for the students to complete, and we run it over the course of an hour so that we can explain all the rules to the room and the system. So we let them know that there's nothing that they should be doing that would otherwise be unsafe, that there's no clues hidden in sharps boxes or anything like that, that they don't need to tear into drywall or undo any electrical stuff, and that they don't need any components or other equipment unless we supply it, aside from maybe a stethoscope and a pen.
In regards to creating content for your escape room, I recommend going to an actual escape room and looking at their puzzles for inspiration. If you're unable to do that, then I recommend going to a place like Target or Walmart. In their board game aisle, they'll have escape rooms in a box. These are board games designed to be played at home with friends and family that are typically themed in a weird way, like escaping from an amusement park or a scary lab or something to that effect. One such company that makes these is called Exit. There are many companies, and I don't endorse anyone in particular. They all work equally well. But you're going to see some of their puzzles, and you might be inspired from them. So for example, maybe you had to solve some type of math problem in this escape room. You could take that, rather than solving a math problem and getting a random number, you could have a drug calculation or a drip rate calculation, and that number, the drip rate of maybe 125 milliliters per second, now will open up a combination lock or something to that effect. Or you might see in the escape room in a box has a puzzle where you're anagramming words. And instead of anagramming words related to that theme, like a laboratory or an amusement park, you could anagram words related to maternal health or pediatrics or whatever your area is. When doing these puzzles, I also recommend looking at what your end condition is. Our end condition is that the nursing students are calling a healthcare provider and providing report. So how do they get there? Well, they need to do an assessment. How do they get the assessment? They need to take a health history. How do they get a health history? They need to bring the patient in, do an intake of a patient from an ER, for example. So that's where we start. So working backwards lets you figure out how the scenario itself works. In regards to the content itself, like how do we know what questions to ask, that's mostly knowing our educational goals and our outcomes that we would like. So the whole purpose of this escape room is that it's going to be a review for our maternal health nursing students before the final. So we looked at all of the lessons taught throughout the semester and hit the key points therein so that they had a decent review. You could easily, if you're going to do something like this, look at a review packet and pick questions from certain sections and go from there. If you have any additional questions, comments, or concerns, by all means reach out to me. I did work with a colleague on this. Her name is Beth Smith, and she's the maternal health nursing professor. And obviously a content area expert. I'm our simulation lab director and a puzzle enthusiast. So we work together to figure this all out. She'll be presenting at ATI this year being 2020, and if you have any additional questions, she will be there, and I highly recommend talking to her. She will have tons of handouts and those types of materials as well.